365 Reels. My name's Eric Ortiz. I'm a filmmaker in New York City, and my cohort is
Everett Goldner, actor and screenwriter.
Okay, so the movie of the week is Midnight Special.
Directed by Jeff Nichols, who's made 4 films before this one, including Mud, which both of us have seen by now, Take Shelter, which we haven't seen but is widely considered his best film, and a few others before that. And if you've seen all of them, then you are definitely in the minority.
Yeah, because this guy makes very character-driven, but ultimately very strange movies.
Strange is a broad term. I think we owe our audience to get a little more specific than that.
We deliberately went out of our way to see at least one of his movies before we did this because we both saw Midnight Special.
Neither of us really knew what to make of it on watching it.
No, it was this interesting Starman meets E.T. meets
you definitely get the
Explorers.
sense that this is not a movie where the director went in and pitched it to a studio as something meets something. He had his vision, and he went out and made it. The only other thing that we really can say in a concrete sense is that Michael Shannon is in every one of his films.
Yeah, but it's almost like how Scorsese always had De Niro in the background of every movie, no matter what the hell he was involved with.
Sure, in the early days.
And then let's be honest, if you got an actor that's consistent, that's solid, and that I think the audience can feel the story through, you're gonna go with that guy. I'm kind of surprised that this is all going off track a little bit, that Shannon wasn't cast as Mud.
I don't think Shannon would really make a lot of sense as Mud. I mean, Shannon does have that darkness, and Mud, you need someone who is, frankly, a lot more Matthew McConaughey-ish. You need that guy who can sort of look rough and tumble and,
That
sound...
vulnerability, just like...
Vulnerability and also sound a bit like a good old boy, which Michael Shannon would have a lot harder time with.
Alright. Haha, funny. But with Midnight Special, it's funny because, again, we saw the trailer. I think we both saw just the teaser. We didn't see any detailed trailer.
No, the trailer was intriguing, definitely.
And when we saw it, it was basically us and maybe 2 other people in the theater. It was the largest auditorium. It's a very engrossing film. You get absorbed into it. I found myself absorbed into what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the pacing of it and the setups, they're very vague.
The pacing is difficult. I enjoyed the pacing up to about the 1 hour mark, and then there's a long scene that takes place in a motel where they sort of explain the boy's powers and where he comes from. And at that point, I started to tune out because it almost felt unscripted, if that makes sense.
Well, funny because a handful of times I found myself watching the film, enjoying it, and at the same time not, which was it was hard because I was really trying to get into it, but I felt like you've hit your beats. You've established, even if it's not a clear definition as to what Michael Shannon, why he's doing this, you feel that he believes why he's doing it, so you go with it. And then I think it just kept repeating the same point over and over and over again, and the performances are so strong that it keeps you engaged. But from a storytelling standpoint, it just kind of didn't hold for me as well as it probably did for you.
It doesn't hold together in a narrative sense, but it's not really trying to. I mean, when we were walking out of the theater and trying to figure out what this thing was that we just watched, I said, I think above all it's a movie that's just supremely uninterested in telling you anything. It wants to give you stuff to think about. Here's an interesting image. There's that fantastic scene in the parking lot where the kid takes his glasses off and then the sky falls.
Yeah.
Stars start falling from the sky and crashing in the parking lot. It's an amazing scene.
It's an amazing scene, but at the same time, it almost felt as if some exec saw this movie and figured, you know what, at this point we need some action just to liven things up.
Yeah, I don't know who released the movie. I don't know if it was a major studio or an indie studio.
Well,
It had to be an indie studio. But.
yeah, excuse me. No major studio is going to release a movie like this the way it was released. There's always that fear that people are just not going to get it. And here I'm a person that felt like they got it and still would not say it's a great movie per se, but ironically enough, I would say it's a movie worth seeing.
I would call it, I mean, if I have to put a label on it, I would call it a unique movie. This guy, Jeff Nichols, who neither of us really know anything about besides having seen 2 of his movies at this point, he's definitely got a vision. The other film of his that we both watched, Mud, which is with Matthew McConaughey in 2012, it's got more of a straightforward narrative. You can follow it, you kind of know where it's going to go, and it ends up there, and yet it's still really enjoyable to watch. And yet there's something that's just really, really authentic and gritty is the wrong word, but there's nothing.
There's a rawness to it.
There's a rawness to it. There's nothing that tells you. There's nothing that says that this is a film that someone, the pulp. I mean the juice of what the writer wanted to create. I'm sure he writes all of his own movies. He's got to.
Yeah, well, keep going.
And that's sort of that's primary, and narrative. Although Mud certainly has a more or less conventional narrative, it's secondary. Narrative is definitely secondary in this guy's movies. And having seen two of them, I'm really curious to see Take Shelter, which is supposedly his greatest movie. Michael Shannon plays some kind of apocalyptic street preacher man.
Well, Michael Shannon can play anything.
I mean, that sounds like a role that Michael Shannon is born to play.
And just for fact checking, he also did write Mud.
I'm sure he did.
So I get the feeling that watching Jeff Nichols' film is a character study that just wants to focus on how people react to events, not interested in really defining the events themselves.
Yeah. So if you're going to a movie looking for something to zone out to, this is not the movie to watch. In fact, no Jeff Nichols movie is something to watch. You want to get something else. If you want a movie that's going to engross you and make you look at the world in a slightly different way, then he's your guy.
Yeah, because we were watching Midnight Special, and we both got a Starman vibe from it.
Definitely, yeah.
And again, to do a little research, we watched Mud, and we both felt it was very Stand By Me. Mm-hmm. The Stephen King movie that was adapted to the Rob Reiner film in '86?
Yes, from a story called The Body.
Right, and again, it's hard to define whether these movies are good, but you can't just look at them and say, oh, I was bored, I was uninterested. I guess my biggest issue with Midnight Special is that I wanted a clearer path. And you mentioned,
and the movie refuses to give you one. It's just not refuses so much as it's simply uninterested in giving you a straightforward A to B. Here's the second act twist. Here's the third act reveal.
Right.
There is in fact a kind of reveal in the third act, which we won't spoil. But
screw it. No. Spoil.
Well, so when we discover that we eventually discover that the kid comes from a kind of parallel world that is on Earth, yet we can't see it.
Yeah.
And it was one point that a lot of reviews noted that I guess I would agree with, which was that making the world explicit, as Nichols does, we'd actually see this parallel world at the end of the movie, and it's sort of this artistic sketch of sort of alien buildings hanging on our own buildings, and there's kind of freaky alien Epcot Center sort of thing in the middle of Florida that comes out of nowhere, and I didn't feel that there was really a need to see it, because imagining it in a way is
more powerful. Yeah. No, absolutely. And for me, it made me feel, well, is this an alien world, or is this our world fast forward 1,000 years from now?
Yeah, and Nichols doesn't give you these answers. And there's nothing wrong with that. What is difficult to deal with is that you're not sure which questions he's raising. That's the real issue here, I think.
And I think, the kid aside, like the periphery characters, Michael Shannon as the father, Joe Edgerton, who was actually really, really freaking good in this.
Mm-hmm. Kirsten Dunst as the boy's mother,
which surprised me. She's kind of grunged herself up a little bit to look like a worn single mom. Mm-hmm. But dude, Shannon's a freaking powerhouse of a performer.
He really is.
There's so much that he's saying and not saying anything at all in this movie that it was just painful to see.
Yeah, people tend to think of Shannon. As General Zod. Frankly, they tend to think that he's this sort of crazy eyes guy who's good at scaring you, and not much else. But and we both watched a lot of Michael Shannon films recently. Yeah. After I finished watching 99 Homes, which we've both seen, I was watching an interview with Shannon, and they were asking him, "So are you shy?" And he says. He thought about it for what must have been 30 seconds, and then he finally said, yeah, I think I'm getting more and more shy as I go along, and sort of like more in my shell, which this sort of, the vibe that I got from the guy was that he's becoming this sort of, like Sean Penn, methody sort of actor who's retreating from the world and not really sure what to do with it the more that he goes along and gets into his roles. Not that you would know this from watching him on screen.
It's a good comparison to Sean Penn because I think Sean Penn someone like a Mickey Rourke, in terms of like their raw talent, is a little bit underrated.
Yeah.
Even though Sean Penn has won 2 Oscars, but still, name 5 great Sean Penn roles is pretty hard to have them pop off the top of your head.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
But in terms of what Shannon does in this movie, where you never for a moment question that he does not love the hell out of his son, and that there's nothing he wouldn't do for him, and for him to never have, I mean, it's, we're all balls out about the spoilers, but for him never to have that moment where he holds his son or tells him anything or even remotely acknowledges to somebody else that, well, I'm doing this for XYZ, it's all in his face.
It's all in his face, even at the end of the film after the boy has been taken away by his real alien parents, and Michael Shannon's, the last shot of the film is Michael Shannon in prison, and it's just a close-up of Shannon's face, and you can see the completion of the journey.
Yeah.
That everything happened the way it had to happen, and it's over and done with, and he'll probably be in jail for the rest of his life.
And he doesn't care.
And he doesn't care, and he has this sort of beatific smile on his face. And the man's talent is amazing. Even in Mud, where Shannon has a minor role, he's one of the boys. The film focuses on 2 13-year-old boys, and he plays the uncle of one of the boys. He only has a few scenes, and he's just kind of this guitar-playing good old boy. And yet it's a complete departure from anything else that we've seen Michael Shannon do. He's sort of this laid-back, chill dude who's got girls coming in and out all the time.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned 99 Homes, and 99 Homes is basically if General Zod was a
real estate dealer, yeah, and he's immensely powerful in that role.
Yeah. So now we mentioned I think we've kind of bundled in what we've liked and didn't like. Would you say to someone, "Hey, you should check this movie out"?
Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah, that's a difficult question. I wouldn't say it to someone off the streets. It would have to be someone. I feel like it would have to come up in a conversation.
Yes.
I would have to know the person a little bit.
Yeah, like, oh, you like this movie, that movie, give this movie a shot.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't. I can't see myself just bringing it up during the dinner chat. Oh, you want to see a good movie? See Midnight Special.
Someone off the street. Hey, dude, I need to see a movie tonight. What do you recommend? It's not the first film. It's not the 5th film that's going to pop to mind. And yet, is it worth watching? Absolutely. In a really intangible way, I think that anyone would get something out of seeing this film, and what each person gets would probably be something a little different. And I think that really speaks to the unique sort of idiosyncrasy of this guy's vision. I don't know I don't know anything about Jeff Nichols. I've never seen him speak. I don't know where he comes from or where he's going.
I don't know if he's Mike Nichols' son.
Mike Nichols' son, probably not. Probably no relation. But whatever else he is, he's a very sort of if the Coen brothers, if there'd only ever been one Coen brother and they didn't have a
if there were only one Coen brother, he'd be a Nichols.
Yeah.
All right. So, final thought on Midnight Special. If I have to give it a rating, it's a very, very positive 6 because I cannot call this a bad film. If it's one of those, as you mentioned, it's one of those in conversation. I like Starman. I liked old school John Carpenter Halloween. That very tonal heavy storytelling. I mean, we talked Blade Runner a little bit after we finished seeing the film, and how it's not about what the movie's trying to tell you or show you. It's how it's making you feel. It is. Yeah. It's this is gonna sound so pretentious, but it was one of those movies that felt like you're watching a painting. You just absorb it.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad film. It's not a good film, but dude, if you know what you're getting yourself into, or if you want to be surprised, it's worth seeing. So I hold at a solid, very positive, and no much further than that 6.
I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8, and really the only reason I'm not giving it a 9 is because we do actually see the alien world at the end, and I just felt that was unnecessary and kind of counter to what the rest of the film has shown us, the ambiguity throughout it, and suddenly, here's the actual alien world. That's kind of a bit of a so what anticlimax.
It kind of takes the energy away from people just believing.
Yeah, I mean, which is what Nichols seems to do very well, because if you've gone on his ride this far and you haven't turned the movie off or gotten bored, then you will slowly begin to believe in this guy's world, and then for him to show you the actual alien world is a bit of, well, why? We don't. It doesn't add anything to it. It doesn't add anything to what we're already seeing in our imaginations if we've gotten that far.
It kind of made me think of the extended cut of Close Encounters, where Spielberg was coerced into showing you the inside of the ship.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah.
And if you've seen that, the behind the scenes on the Blu-ray to that film, you'd understand that he didn't want to show the inside of a ship at all. He just wanted to finish occasional scene here and there. But yeah, so continue, please.
But I enjoyed. The painting analogy is one analogy. I would say that this is a film that gives you an experience, and I think that's if you were to sit down with this guy, whether he would say, well, this is my intention or not, I'm pretty sure that this is something that Jeff Nichols is always trying to do, is to get you to go beyond categories of, oh, it was good, or oh, it sucked, I liked it, I didn't like it. It's something that's happening. The first thing we see in this movie is, over the opening credits, Michael Shannon and Joel Edgerton taking this kid out in a car with no headlights in the middle of the night, midnight, while it plays this repeating piano motif that we hear throughout the movie that's kind of iconic and unforgettable once you've heard it. I had that piano theme in my head for 2 days after I saw the movie. It sort of seems to describe your mood all the time after that. And it's a movie that's just going, that knows where it's going, and you're either going to come along or you aren't. If you aren't, okay. Your loss maybe. If you do, you may well find that the world is a little shifted for you afterwards in a slightly magical way. And it isn't every movie that you can genuinely say that about, even though it's a bit of a cliche to say it, but really, how many movies do that these days? Not many.
There's one thing that I am grateful for, having seen this in the theater, instead of seeing it at home on Netflix or on DVD or Blu-ray. You don't have the luxury of pausing to come back to it later.
Right.
And this movie's most effective when it's just playing in the background, and you're just there. You can't escape is not the right word, but
you can't escape from this.
You can't avoid it. You can't not give it your attention, and I guess that's when you get sucked in.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's Midnight Special in a nutshell.
Okay, so as you can see, even the act of trying to describe the strange brilliance of Midnight Special has taken something out of us. Eric gives it a 6, I give it an 8, and you may give it something else entirely if you give it a shot, which I think you should.
Yeah, definitely give it a shot. Depending on the kind of film person that you are, I guess it would be fair to say if you're into very Michael Bay-ish type of films, this will not rock your boat.
No.
What would be a good comparison film or filmmaker style that we could say they could look at to see whether they appreciate this movie or not?
I would say if you like John Carpenter, Starman, or The Last Starfighter, there is something that is just very, not 80s exactly, but I think old school is the right term. This isn't a movie that you would expect to find coming at you in 2016. It feels like a movie from another time, and Mud does as well, for that matter. And I suspect that all of this guy's films do.
Alright, so cool. So that's the special on Midnight Special. Now, our next podcast will be on Green Room?
I think Eye in the Sky next.
You want Eye in the Sky next?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go Eye in the Sky and then Green Room. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. I'm Eric Ortiz, filmmaker in New York City. My cohort is
Everett Goldner. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.